Have you ever felt that pain that cuts so deep it feels like your chest will burst? That feeling of being completely invisible to the person you love most in the entire world? Well, that's exactly what I experienced. For long, arduous years, I built absolutely everything with my own hands. I worked tirelessly, sacrificed every dream I held in my heart, gave up so many things I can't even count. All of this to ensure she had the best I could offer. And do you know what I got in return when the most special day of her life arrived? A cold, venomous phone call informing me that the wedding had already taken place. I only invited important people, she said with a cruel smile I could feel through the phone. Important people. I, who had sacrificed absolutely everything for her, was unimportant. But wait, because the story gets even more intense. 7 days later, my phone rang again. This time the voice was completely different. Shaky, desperate, almost pleading. "Mom, the rent is late. Didn't you pay?" And it was at that exact moment that everything changed. What she didn't realize was that I had made decisions. Decisions that would completely transform that arrogant smile into utter despair. Did you like what you've heard so far? Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I really need your help. Please subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notification bell to all. Your support is crucial to the growth of this work and allows me to continue sharing real and moving stories like the one you're about to hear. Share this video with your friends, family, and co-workers. This story needs to be heard by more people. And tell me in the comments, from which country and city are you watching us right now? I'm so curious to know. Now prepare your heart and follow this complete story until the end, because I guarantee you won't regret it. My name is Amara, and this is the most painful and transformative story I've ever experienced. A story about how a mother's love can be tested to its most extreme limits. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The sun streamed gently through the kitchen window as I prepared dinner. Potatoes were roasting in the oven, the comforting smell filling every corner of the house. It was in this moment of apparent peace that I decided to pick up the phone and call my daughter, Sophie. It had been exactly 3 weeks since we'd been able to have a decent conversation. Every time I called, she'd answer in a rush, saying she was busy with wedding preparations. I understood perfectly. Getting married is truly a time full of details, endless commitments, and important decisions. But my mother's heart ached ever more strongly with each unreturned call, each monosyllable answered message. On that particular afternoon, however, something told me to try again. I dialed the number I knew by heart. 1 ring, 2 rings. To my surprise, she answered quickly. "Hi, Mom." Her voice sounded oddly cheerful. There was something different about it, something I couldn't immediately place. It almost sounded like fun. "Sophie, my dear, what a joy it is to be able to talk to you. I've missed your voice so much." "Look, daughter, I was just thinking while I was cooking. You still haven't told me the exact date of the wedding. I need to plan ahead. You know how it is. I have to buy a dress appropriate for the occasion, something elegant that will be worthy of the event. I also want to choose a very special gift for you both. All these things take time, planning." On the other end of the line, I noticed a pause. It wasn't a normal pause, the kind that naturally occurs in conversation. It was a heavy, charged pause, filled with something I couldn't name. Seconds dragged by like hours. My heart began to beat faster, a strange sense of apprehension taking over me. When Sophie finally decided to answer, her voice had completely changed. Her tone had become icy, calculating, almost spiteful. "Oh, Mom, about that." She paused again dramatically, and then I heard it. I could literally hear the smile forming on her lips. But it wasn't a sweet, maternal, loving smile. It was a cruel smile, sharp as a blade. "We got married yesterday." The world stopped spinning. I swear I felt my heart literally stop beating for a few seconds. My legs went weak. I had to hold on to the kitchen counter to keep from falling. "What? What do you mean yesterday? Sophie, are you playing a joke on me? Please tell me you're kidding. I'm not kidding at all, Mom. It was an absolutely beautiful ceremony, you know, intimate, elegant, sophisticated. Exactly the way Ryan and I always dreamed. Everything was perfect, every detail carefully planned. But how could you do this? You didn't tell me. You didn't give me the chance to be there. I'm your mother, Sophie. How could you get married without even telling me? Another heavy silence. I could hear my own rapid breathing, my heart pounding. And then it came. The sentence that would destroy any shred of hope I still held in my chest. The sentence that would change everything forever. It's just that I only invited important people, Mom. The words fell on me like tons of concrete. Important people. I wasn't important. The woman who carried her for 9 whole months. The woman who stayed up all night when she had a fever, holding her tiny hand, singing lullabies. The woman who worked 2 jobs to pay for a better school. The woman who sold her own jewelry, objects of sentimental value, to ensure she had everything she needed. This woman, apparently, wasn't important enough to witness the most special day of her own daughter's life. Sophie, did you really just say that to me? Do you really, truly believe I'm not important? She let out a long, exaggerated sigh, as if my question were the biggest nuisance in the world, as if I were being dramatic, irrational. Mom, please don't start being dramatic now. You know perfectly well how things are. Ryan and I wanted something extremely elegant, refined, sophisticated. We only invited people who are truly an integral part of our lives right now. Influential, important people from our high social circle. You understand that, don't you? No, I definitely didn't understand. Or maybe I understood too perfectly, and that was precisely the most painful part. My daughter had become exactly the kind of person I'd always feared she might become. Superficial, materialistic, obsessed with social status, appearances, and other people's opinions. And in some incomprehensible way, I simply wasn't sophisticated enough, not elegant enough, not rich enough for her standards. Sophie, I raised you completely alone. I worked until my fingers bled. I gave absolutely everything I had to. Mom, look, I really need to go now. We're on our honeymoon. You know how it is. There's a lot going on. We'll talk more calmly later, okay? Kisses. And she hung up. She simply pressed the red button and ended the call, leaving me standing there, completely paralyzed, holding the phone to my ear, in a state of profound and utter shock. The days that followed were the darkest I've ever experienced. I tried to process what had happened, but my mind simply couldn't accept reality. I cried rivers of tears. I sobbed alone in bed in the wee hours of the morning. I questioned every choice I'd made as a mother. I rummaged through every memory, every moment, desperately searching for where I'd gone so wrong. How did my sweet Sophie, that bright-eyed little girl who used to write colorful little cards filled with hearts on Mother's Day, who told me I was the best mother in the whole world, turn into this cold, calculating person, capable of such cruelty? The answer began to form gradually as I forced my mind to revisit the past few years with brutal honesty. Everything began to change dramatically after Sophie met Ryan at a corporate gala. He came from an extremely wealthy family, full of powerful connections in the business world. And Sophie was absolutely dazzled, mesmerized by that glittering world of luxury and opulence. I remember clearly when she began to change. It was gradual at first, almost imperceptible. She started attending expensive parties at exclusive clubs. Her clothes changed completely. Suddenly they were all designer labels, prestigious labels. Her way of speaking transformed, adopting a more affected, artificially polished tone. And her eyes, when they looked at me, changed. Where there had been unconditional love, something began to emerge that hurt too much to acknowledge: shame. I vividly remember one specific occasion that should have been a huge red flag. Sophie had been invited to a major charity event, something related to Ryan's work. She casually mentioned it during a phone call, and I naturally assumed I'd go along to support her. "Mom, it's just, about this event," she began hesitantly. "Maybe it's best if you don't go this time." "Why, dear? I'd love to see you in that environment, support you. It's just that your clothes, well, they don't exactly match the event's dress code. It's very formal, very specific. It would be embarrassing for both of us if you showed up dressed inappropriately." The words were carefully chosen, but the meaning was crystal clear. I was an embarrassment. My simple, store-bought clothes were no match for her sophisticated world. At the time, I swallowed that enormous humiliation, pretended I was perfectly fine, said I completely understood. But I wasn't fine, and I didn't understand. Now, sitting on my modest living room sofa, gazing around at the walls that had witnessed so many genuinely happy moments when Sophie was just an innocent child, I finally woke up. I woke up brutally to the cruel, inescapable reality that my daughter no longer loved me. Perhaps she never truly loved me the way I imagined. Perhaps I was merely a convenient means to a desired end. And it was precisely in that moment of painful, absolute clarity that my phone rang again, breaking the heavy silence. It was Sophie, again, just 7 days after completely excluding me from her own wedding. I answered with a voice that sounded tired, defeated, and without energy. "Hello? Mom, thank God you answered quickly." Her voice was completely different now. Anxious, tense, filled with palpable nervousness. "I really need to talk to you about something extremely urgent." "What happened, Sophie?" "It's about the house, Mom. Our house. The one you were helping pay the rent on. The landlord, Mr. Henderson, just called with a threatening message. He said this month's payment is completely late. And not only that, he made it clear that if we don't pay in full by next Friday, he'll legally evict us. Mom, did you forget to make the transfer? Is there something wrong with your bank account?" "Ah, yes, the house. How could I forget? Let me put this situation in context. When Sophie and Ryan began dating seriously about 3 years ago, they decided to move in together. But they didn't want just any old apartment, just any ordinary place. No, they specifically wanted a proper home, as Sophie repeatedly emphasized. A place located in an upscale neighborhood, surrounded by influential neighbors, with a good social standing. Something that would impress their refined friends, something that would demonstrate status. Obviously, they couldn't afford the absurdly high rent on their own. Ryan was still in his final years of college, completely supported financially by his wealthy parents, and Sophie worked at a high-end designer clothing boutique where she earned significantly more compliments and employee discounts than actual cash at the end of the month. So, guess who was appointed, elected, chosen to cover the substantial majority of that stratospheric rent? Exactly. Me. Sophie came to me one afternoon, her eyes pleading, her voice sweet and manipulative. She said it would only be temporary, a temporary help. Just until Ryan graduates and gets that fantastic job at his father's company. Mom, please, it's absolutely crucial to our future together, to building our life together. You want to see your daughter happy, fulfilled, don't you? You always said you'd do anything for me. And of course, as always, I gave in. As always, I gave in to her every request, no matter how absurd. For 2 long years running, I paid that rent religiously every single month. A completely absurd, stratospheric amount, which regularly consumed almost half of my hard-earned salary. Half. I had to make drastic cuts in absolutely every aspect of my life. I completely stopped buying new clothes for myself. My clothes were getting old, worn out. But there was no money. I canceled all my subscriptions, streaming, gym memberships, everything. Even my basic diet became significantly more frugal, simpler, and more economical. I cut out red meat almost completely. I lived basically on rice, beans, and cheap vegetables. All of this immense sacrifice, so that my daughter and her privileged boyfriend could live comfortably in a beautiful, spacious, impressive house worthy of photos for social media. And now she was on the other end of the phone, her voice thick with panic, worried solely because the rent hadn't been paid on time. "Mom, are you still on the line? Please answer. Why didn't you pay the rent like you always do?" I took a deep breath, feeling an absolutely strange, almost supernatural calm completely invade me, a perfect, absolute clarity of mind. "Didn't I tell you?" "Told you what exactly, Mom? What are you talking about? Told you what?" "That I won't pay anymore." Total silence. A silence so heavy, so dense, so charged with pure disbelief that I could practically feel its weight through the phone. You're saying you're not going to pay anymore? What do you mean? What does that mean?" "It means exactly what you just heard, Sophie. I'm not going to pay a single cent of your rent anymore. In fact, to be completely honest and transparent, I already canceled the automatic transfer exactly 3 weeks ago, right after our last conversation, in fact." "Mom, you can't just do that. We've had an agreement in place for years. You can't break it like that." "What deal, Sophie? Explain to me in detail what this deal is." "A deal where I sacrifice myself infinitely and eternally while you treat me like a second-class citizen, like someone invisible and worthless. A deal where I'm not even remotely important enough to be present on the most special day of your life, but simultaneously, I'm convenient enough, useful enough to financially support your luxurious lifestyle." "Mom, that's completely different. You're mixing up unrelated topics. They're separate things." "Am I mixing it up? Really? Because it seems to me, actually, that I'm just seeing the whole situation with absolute clarity for the first time in a long, long time. For the first time, I'm seeing things exactly as they really are." I heard Sophie breathing extremely hard on the other end, clearly getting more and more nervous, more desperate, losing control. "Mom, you just don't understand the gravity of the situation. If we get evicted, it will be a massive, devastating social humiliation. Absolutely, all of our friends know exactly where we live. We talk about the house constantly. What will they think of us? How will we explain?" So it was about that. Not about losing their home per se. Not about being homeless. About social humiliation. About what the important people would think. About keeping up appearances. "Sophie, you're officially married adults now. Welcome to real adulthood. Find a responsible way to pay your own rent." Ryan still hasn't gotten to start his dad's job. His position is being finalized, and I definitely don't make enough on my own. You know that perfectly well. I've always known. And how exactly did this become solely my problem? You are my mother. You have a moral and ethical obligation to help me whenever I need it. It's extremely funny that you suddenly remember that I'm your mother right now, Sophie. Last week, I wasn't important enough to even watch you walk down the aisle, to hold your hand, to cry with emotion seeing you in the white dress. But now, at this very moment, when you urgently need money, you suddenly remember clearly our family bond. Convenient, don't you think? Sophie began to cry profusely. But it wasn't the genuine, sincere kind of crying, the kind of crying of true sadness. It was the manipulative, calculated, artificial crying she'd masterfully mastered since she was a little girl whenever she wanted to get something specific from me. Mom, please, you're being incredibly cruel to me. I'm so deeply sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry I didn't invite you to the wedding. It was terribly wrong of me, I admit it. But are you really going to punish me forever for this mistake? Are you going to make me pay forever? I'm not punishing you at all, Sophie. I'm just finally setting healthy, necessary boundaries. Something I should have done years ago, but didn't have the courage, until now. Limits. You call these limits? You're completely leaving me high and dry. We're going to be evicted, left on the street. So I strongly suggest you speak to Ryan's parents urgently. I am absolutely certain that they, being such incredibly important, influential, and financially successful people will be delighted to help their beloved son and daughter-in-law. I heard extremely heavy breathing, filled with pure rage. You know perfectly well that they won't help one bit. They've already made it crystal clear that Ryan needs to learn responsibility, mature, and be independent. What an absolutely fantastic coincidence. I'm literally saying the exact same thing to you. I hate you. I hate you with all my might. The words exploded from the phone, full of distilled venom, charged with visceral rage. But curiously, strangely, they didn't hurt me the way they should have. Maybe because, deep down in my heart, I'd known intuitively for a long time that my daughter no longer loved me. Not truly. You can hate me as much as you want, Sophie. Feel completely free. But I will no longer be your convenient financier while simultaneously being treated like a complete nobody. You will bitterly regret this when I really need you in the future, when you are old, frail, dependent, in need of care. I will specifically remember this horrible day. I will abandon you just the same. Honey, if my future depends on you anyway, based on how you treat me, I already know perfectly well that I'm doomed to total abandonment anyway. So it really doesn't make any difference. And I hung up the phone abruptly. My hands were visibly shaking. My heart was beating wildly, irregularly. But there was also something profoundly liberating about it all. That conversation, that decision. For the first time in countless years, I had put my own feelings, my own needs, first and foremost. In the days that followed, Sophie tried to call me literally dozens of times. My phone rang non-stop. She left endless messages, some tearful and pleading, others angry and threatening, and then back to desperate. I meticulously ignored every single one. Ryan also attempted multiple contact attempts, sending extremely polite text messages, gently asking to talk like civilized, rational adults about this delicate situation. I completely ignored him as well. On the Friday of that fateful week, I received an unexpected call from a completely unknown number. I answered it out of genuine curiosity. Mrs. Amara? It was an unfamiliar female voice, extremely formal and professional. Yes? Is it me? Good morning. This is Linda Peterson from Riverside Properties. I'm calling specifically about the residential property at 247 Maple Street, which you kindly rented to your daughter, Sophie Richardson, and her husband. Since payment was not made within the time frame established in the lease, and the tenant has provided absolutely no alternative means of regularizing the outstanding financial situation, we have officially proceeded with the eviction process as legally provided for in our lease. I'm calling primarily to confirm that you no longer have any financial responsibility related to this specific property. Your information has been completely removed from the lease. I understand perfectly. Thank you for the official confirmation. No problem, ma'am. Have a great day. I hung up slowly, feeling a deeply contradictory mix of genuine relief and heavy sadness. It was official, documented, final. Sophie and Ryan had been formally evicted. Part of me, the maternal part that never completely dies no matter what, felt a painful tightness in my chest. My daughter was going through a serious struggle, but the rational part, the part that had finally awakened after years of slumber, knew deep down that this was absolutely necessary, essential for both of us. 2 long weeks passed in absolute and complete silence. No calls, no messages, no contact. I had almost convinced myself that Sophie would simply cut me off completely and permanently when my phone rang again unexpectedly. This time, it wasn't Sophie. It was a number I recognized immediately, my old neighbor, Margaret, a lovely lady who lived next door to the house where Sophie grew up throughout her childhood. Amara, dear, how have you been lately? Hi, Margaret. What a nice surprise. I'm reasonably well. And you, how are you? I'm doing wonderfully. Thanks for asking. Look, I called because, well, have you heard the recent news about Sophie? My stomach immediately tightened uncomfortably. Plus, what news specifically? She and her husband are currently living with his parents, the Richardsons. But from what I've heard around the neighborhood, things aren't going well for her at all. Ryan's mother, Eleanor Richardson, is, well, how can I put it politely, an extremely difficult person to deal with. I've heard from reliable sources that she treats Sophie practically like a maid. She makes the poor thing do all the heavy household chores, cleaning the entire huge house, washing mountains of dishes, cooking elaborate meals. And Ryan, apparently, doesn't defend his wife at all. Since they lost their house, they say he's completely changed. He's become cold, distant, indifferent. I carefully processed this information in heavy silence. How did you find out all this in such detail, Margaret? Oh dear, you know perfectly well how the neighborhood works. News travels fast, especially juicy ones. In fact, I ran into Sophie in person at the supermarket a few days ago. She was, well, visibly haggard, extremely thin with dark circles under her eyes and unkempt clothes. She barely greeted me properly. She seemed completely out of touch. After I hung up, I was deeply thoughtful for hours. Part of me, I honestly admit, felt a certain satisfaction. The poetic justice of Sophie, who treated me like an invisible maid, now being treated in exactly the same cruel way by her mother-in-law. But another part, smaller and softer, maternal, felt genuine pity. Another month slowly passed, and then, on a particularly cold, rainy Saturday morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened the heavy door, I genuinely almost didn't recognize the person standing there in front of me. Sophie was visibly, drastically different. Pale as a sheet, her clothes clearly wrinkled, dirty, and unkempt. Her hair was dull, lifeless, tied carelessly in a sloppy ponytail. The dark circles Margaret had mentioned were even more pronounced in person, deep purple circles beneath dull eyes. But most shocking, most disturbing, was her entire facial expression. All that characteristic arrogance, that irritating superiority, had completely vanished. In its place was only profound exhaustion and utter defeat. "Hi, Mom," the voice came out weak, practically a whisper. I stood there, holding tightly to the door, completely unsure of how to react appropriately. "Sophie, can I come in, please?" I seriously considered denying it. I considered shutting the door right in her face, just as cruelly as she'd shut the door to her life on me without hesitation. But I couldn't. I simply couldn't. After all, despite absolutely everything, she was still my daughter. I reluctantly made room for her to pass. Sophie entered extremely slowly, looking cautiously around as if visiting a long-forgotten place, a distant memory. She sat on the sofa without asking permission, her hands visibly shaking as she placed them awkwardly in her lap. I carefully sat in the chair opposite, deliberately maintaining a physical distance, waiting patiently for her to speak first. I wasn't going to make this easy. I know perfectly well that you don't want to talk to me, and I completely understand. I've done absolutely horrible, unforgivable things. I didn't answer anything. I just waited silently. "Mom, my life is complete, literal hell." The tears began to flow freely, genuine this time apparently. Living with Ryan's parents has been the most devastating experience of my entire life. His mother, Eleanor, she hates me viscerally. From day one, she treats me like I'm completely inferior, like I'm not even remotely good enough for her precious, perfect son. She makes me clean the entire mansion alone, wash endless dishes, cook elaborate meals for the whole family. And if I even complain, she coldly tells me that as long as we're living on gracious favor in her house, we have an obligation to contribute substantially. Sophie wiped away the excessive tears with the back of her trembling hand. And Ryan, he's completely, utterly changed. He never defends me. When I complain bitterly about his mother's horrible treatment of him, he simply nonchalantly tells me I'm dramatically overreacting, that I should be incredibly grateful we have a roof over our heads. He He barely talks to me anymore. He practically ignores me. He spends all day working in his father's luxurious office. And when he finally gets home late at night, he goes straight to his room. Yes, completely separate rooms. His mother has been adamant about this from day one. I listened to absolutely everything in contemplative silence, my face carefully neutral, revealing zero emotion. Mom, I was completely wrong. About absolutely everything. About cruelly excluding you from the wedding, about treating you like you weren't important, like you were invisible. You are the most important person in my entire life, and I stupidly threw it all away because I was blinded by a superficial world that means absolutely nothing in the end. The tears continued to fall incessantly. Please, Mom, please, I beg you, forgive me. I need you desperately. I need to come home urgently. I took a deep breath. That crucial moment had arrived, the moment of absolute truth. Go back home? Yes, I can't stand living there for another day. Please let me live here with you again like before. I'll get a better job right away. I'll help with all the bills. I'll do anything you ask. Ryan? Sophie paused abruptly. What about Ryan? Ryan, your legal husband. Is he coming along or not? I honestly don't know. I don't think so. Mom, I honestly think I'm going to file for an official divorce. That genuinely surprised me, caught me off guard. You've been married less than 3 months, 90 days. I know perfectly well, Mom, but we simply can't go on like this. He's absolutely not the man I naively thought he was. When things were good, when we had a beautiful house and a comfortable, easy life, he was superficially attentive and romantic. But now that things have gotten genuinely difficult, he's shown his true colors, a pathetic coward who can't even stand up for his own wife. I slowly got up from the chair and walked to the window, looking thoughtfully at the street outside, at the trees swaying in the wind. Sophie, you have hurt me deeply, irreversibly. I know, Mom. I know perfectly well, and I'm so deeply sorry. It wasn't just in marriage. It was years of accumulated, growing disrespect, of making me feel small, insignificant, inferior, of being ashamed of myself. I was never ashamed of you. I turned abruptly to face her directly. You didn't, really. Then explain to me why you never introduced me to your new, refined friends. Why you specifically asked me not to show up at important social events. Why you completely changed your accent, your way of dressing, as if you desperately wanted to erase any trace of where you really came from, of your roots. Sophie lowered her head in shame, completely unable to respond properly. You know what hurts most immensely, Sophie. It's not just that you coldly excluded me from the wedding. It's that you smiled as you did it. There was genuine pleasure, satisfaction in your voice when you cruelly said you only invited important people. You deliberately wanted to hurt me, and you succeeded magnificently. Mom, I was being horrible, monstrous, I know perfectly well. But I've completely changed now. This whole terrible experience has transformed me profoundly. It made me finally see what truly matters. Have you really changed? Or have you just lost the privileged lifestyle that made you feel superior, and now you need to rely on me again? The words came out significantly harsher than I had originally intended, but they were absolutely true. Sophie looked at me with wide, shocked eyes. You honestly think I'm just here because I desperately need a place to stay? I think so. I'm absolutely sure. No, Mom, it's not like that. I really realized deeply how wrong I was, how important you are to me. Answer honestly, if I had continued paying the rent regularly, would you be here now? The heavy silence that followed said absolutely everything. It's exactly what I imagined. Mom, please, don't do this to me. I genuinely need you. Needing me is not the same as truly loving me, Sophie. It's not the same as respecting me as a person. And until you understand this fundamental difference, There is no possibility of real reconciliation. So you just won't let me back in? I sat back down, looking directly into her eyes. Not under these specific circumstances. But where exactly do I go then? Where most responsible adults go when they need real independence. Get a decent job, rent a small apartment that fits within a realistic budget, rebuild their life completely from scratch. I can't do this alone. Of course you can do it perfectly. You're young, healthy, intelligent. You can do it. What you can't do is maintain the luxurious lifestyle you've comfortably grown accustomed to. And that's the real issue, isn't it? Sophie began to sob uncontrollably. You are being extremely cruel. No, honey. I'm finally being realistic. And I'm teaching you a valuable lesson I should have taught you years ago. You can't treat people like disposable doormats and expect them to always be available when you conveniently need them. Actions have consequences, always. But you're my mother. Mothers forgive unconditionally. Forgiving doesn't mean completely forgetting, and it definitely doesn't mean enabling the same destructive behaviors over and over again. Sophie stood up abruptly, anger finally completely overcoming her sadness. Do you know what you are? A bitter and vengeful person. You're taking advantage of this situation to deliberately make me suffer. No, Sophie. I'm using this situation to finally protect myself. To firmly establish that I will no longer be treated like a second-class citizen in my own daughter's life. You will bitterly regret this. When I rebuild my life completely, when things improve substantially, you will want to be a part of it, and I will exclude you in the same cruel way that you are excluding me now. If that's how you genuinely feel, then my point is perfectly proven. You haven't changed at all. You're still the same selfish, vindictive person. Sophie marched furiously to the door, her fists clenched. Goodbye, Mother. I sincerely hope that your loneliness keeps you company since you prefer it to me. And he left, slamming the door violently. I sat there, motionless, expecting to feel deep remorse, devastating regret. But I didn't. I felt, instead, a strange kind of inner peace. I had set a firm boundary. I had stood up for my self-worth. And even though it hurt intensely, it was absolutely necessary. The following months were extraordinarily quiet. I heard nothing from Sophie. No calls, no messages, no contact. It was as if she had been completely erased from my life. And although there were inevitable moments of deep sadness, of genuine longing for the sweet girl she once was, I was gradually learning to live with myself again. I finally started doing things I'd completely neglected. I rejoined the book club I loved so much. I enrolled in watercolor painting classes. I traveled to places I'd always wanted to see, but never had the financial means to because I was completely financing Sophie's life. I was, for the first time in decades, truly living for myself. It was on one of these liberating trips, while visiting a contemporary art gallery in a charming neighboring town, that I received a call from a completely unknown number. I answered reluctantly. Hello, Mrs. Amara. It was an unfamiliar female voice, extremely formal and urgent. Try. This is Central Memorial Hospital. Your daughter, Sophie Richardson, was admitted to our emergency room. She was completely unconscious when she arrived by ambulance, and you are her emergency contact on file. My whole world stopped again. How? What exactly happened? We prefer to explain in detail in person. Can you come here urgently? I'm going right away. The drive to the hospital was a complete blur. A million contradictory thoughts raced through my mind simultaneously. Despite absolutely everything, despite the deep hurt, the accumulated resentment, Sophie was still my daughter, and the thought of something serious happening to her terrified me completely. When I rushed to the hospital, I went straight to the information desk. I'm here for my daughter, Sophie. Sophie Richardson. The attendant checked the computerized system. "She's in the emergency room, bed 7, third corridor on the left." I ran desperately through the endless corridors, my heart beating wildly until I found the indicated bed, and there she was. Sophie, lying in a hospital bed, pale as a ghost, with an IV in her arm and monitors constantly beeping around her. She looked so fragile, so small, so vulnerable. A doctor was checking the machines when I hurried over. "Doctor, what happened to her?" The doctor looked at me with an extremely serious expression. "Are you the mother?" "Yes, I am." "Your daughter was brought in by a neighbor who found her unconscious in the apartment. She was severely dehydrated, critically malnourished, and showed clear signs of extreme exhaustion. From what we've been able to determine through tests, she hasn't been eating properly for several weeks." My hand instinctively flew to my mouth. But how did this happen so badly? We also found very high levels of anxiety and clinical signs of severe depression. She will need not only physical treatment, but intensive psychological treatment as well. I looked at Sophie, still unconscious, and felt my heart break painfully. It didn't matter how much she had hurt me. Seeing her like this shattered any barrier I had built. Will she be okay? It will, but it needs a lot of support and considerable time to fully recover. I pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed, holding Sophie's cold, thin hand. "I'm her mother. I'm staying here." It was a long 2 hours before Sophie finally, slowly, opened her eyes. When she focused on me, her expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, fear, and then profound relief. "Mom." Her voice came out weak, hoarse. "Don't talk. Rest. You came." "Of course I came. You're in the hospital." Tears began to roll down her face. "I thought you wouldn't come. I thought you hated me." I squeezed his hand tighter. "I never hated you, Sophie. Even when you hurt me deeply, even when I set boundaries, it was never about hate. I messed up. My whole life. The marriage ended. Ryan left me. I lost my job because I couldn't function properly. I was left living in a horrible apartment with barely any furniture. And I just gave up. I stopped eating. I stopped taking care of myself. I just wanted to disappear." My heart sank. "Oh, Sophie, you were right about everything. About Ryan, about how I treated you, about who I became. And when I lost everything, when I was completely alone, I realized, but it was too late. I had already lost you." I ran my hand through her hair, affectionately. "You didn't lose me, darling. I've always been here. But I was horrible to you. Why didn't you just abandon me completely?" "Because I'm your mother, and mothers don't abandon, but they also don't fail to set healthy boundaries. What I did was necessary, for me and for you." Sophie squeezed my hand, as if she was afraid I would disappear. "Will you forgive me?" I took a deep breath before answering. Forgiveness is a complex thing, Sophie. It's not a switch we turn on or off. It's a process. But I can tell you that I want to help you recover. I want to see you well again. Only this time, with boundaries, with mutual respect. I accept any condition. Just don't leave me alone. I won't let you. But even as I said that, a part of me knew things would never be the same again. And maybe it was for the best. Over the next few weeks, I watched Sophie recover. She spent another 10 days in the hospital, gaining weight and receiving psychological treatment. When she was discharged, I took her home. But I set clear rules from the beginning. You can stay here for up to 3 months. During that time, I expect you to look for work, go to therapy regularly, and contribute to the household expenses as much as you can. After 3 months, you should be able to find your own place. Sophie agreed, without question. She was different, more humble, more aware. The first few days were awkward. We had to relearn how to live together, but little by little, we established a new dynamic. Sophie actually looked for a job and started working at a local coffee shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and for the first time, I saw pride in her face for earning her own money. The therapy sessions were also helping. Sophie began to understand how she had lost herself in the search for external validation, how she had traded genuine relationships for superficial ones. One night, we were having dinner together when she said something that caught me off guard. Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why didn't you give up on me, even after everything? It would have been easier to let me deal with the consequences alone." I put the fork aside and looked at her. Because there's a difference between setting boundaries and abandoning yourself completely. I needed you to understand that your actions have consequences, that people aren't disposable tools, but that doesn't mean I stopped caring. But what if I hadn't ended up in the hospital? What if I had simply moved on with my life without looking for you again? Then you would have moved on with your life, and I would have moved on with mine. And maybe we would never have reconciled. But at least I would have the peace of knowing that I respected myself, that I didn't allow myself to continue in a toxic relationship, not even with my own daughter. Sophie nodded, processing the words. "You are stronger than I will ever be." It's not about strength, Sophie. It's about self-knowledge. About understanding your worth and not allowing anyone, absolutely anyone, to make you feel less than you are. We finished dinner in comfortable silence, something we hadn't experienced in years. The 3 months passed faster than expected. Sophie managed to save enough to rent a small apartment. It wasn't luxurious, a studio in a simple neighborhood, but it was hers, earned through her own hard work. On moving day, I helped carry her few things. "Are you sure you don't want to stay a little longer?" I asked. "I have to. I need to learn to stand on my own, for real this time." We sat on the empty floor of the apartment, leaning against the wall. "Mom, I wanted to thank you for everything, for letting me fall and learn, but also for being there when I needed it. That's what mothers do. Not all of them. And I'm lucky to have you." I hugged my daughter, feeling that finally, after so much suffering and pain, we were arriving at a place of genuine healing. But life, as always, had more twists and turns in store. 3 months after Sophie moved in, I received an unexpected call. It was Eleanor, Ryan's mother. "Mrs. Amara, this is Eleanor Richardson." I was surprised. Why would she be calling me? "Hi, Eleanor. How can I help you?" "I would like to speak with you in person. Would it be possible to meet for coffee?" My curiosity was greater than any objection. "Sure, when?" "How about tomorrow at 10 in the morning, at the coffee shop downtown?" "I'll be there." The next morning, I arrived at the coffee shop on time. Eleanor was already there, sitting at a table in the corner, a cup of tea in front of her. She was exactly as I'd imagined, elegant, well-dressed, with a perpetually disapproving expression. I sat down opposite him. "Eleanor, Amara, thank you for coming." We ordered our coffees in awkward silence. "I'll get straight to the point," she began. "I came to apologize." I almost spit out my coffee. "Sorry. Yes, for the way I treated your daughter when she lived with us. I was unnecessarily cruel." I was still processing this when she continued. "Look, I had my reasons. I thought Sophie was a gold digger, that she only wanted our family's money and status. And when they lost their house because of, well, her decision to stop paying, my opinion of her only got worse." I didn't say anything. I just waited for her to continue. "But recently, I found out a few things. Ryan told me the truth about how he treated Sophie during their marriage, and also about how his daughter was excluded from their own wedding. Frankly, I was shocked. Why? Because I realized that Sophie wasn't the villain I'd painted in my head, and that my son was a coward who didn't stand up for his wife when he should have. There was real sadness in her voice. Ryan is really struggling with the divorce. He realized too late that Sophie was good for him, and now she's moved on, rebuilding her life, while my son is lost. Eleanor, may I ask why you are telling me this? She looked me straight in the eyes. Because I admit when I make a mistake, and I want you to know that I admire what you did. What did I do? He set boundaries. He taught his daughter a valuable lesson about consequences and respect. I should have done the same with Ryan years ago. Instead, I coddled him, shielded him from every hardship, and raised a weak man. There was something deeply sad about this confession. It's not too late to teach these lessons, I offered. I hope not, but I came here today because I wanted to apologize in person for how I treated Sophie, and to tell you that you're a better mother than I ever was. Those words, coming from such a proud woman, meant something. Thank you for coming here and being honest. And just so you know, Sophie is fine. She's recovering, working, living an honest life. I'm glad to hear that. Eleanor stood, grabbing her bag. Take care, Amara, and continue to be the strong example you are for your daughter. And she left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. When I told Sophie about the encounter, she was as surprised as I was. Eleanor apologized, the Eleanor who treated me like dirt. The same. Wow, I can't believe it. Sometimes people surprise you. Sophie was thoughtful. You know, Mom, I was mad at Ryan for a long time, but I think I'm starting to forgive him too. Not because I want to get back together with him, or because what he did was right, but because holding on to anger was only hurting me. I smiled at my daughter, seeing the mature woman she was becoming. That's growth, honey. Real growth. The months continued to pass. Sophie was promoted to manager at the coffee shop. She was saving money, making plans for the future. Our relationship also continued to improve. It wasn't perfect. There were still tense moments, painful memories that occasionally resurfaced. But it was real, honest, and respectful. And then, one ordinary Saturday, while we were having lunch together, Sophie said something I will never forget. Mom, I want to thank you for being strong when I needed it most. Like this? When you stopped paying the rent, when you set boundaries, when you forced me to face the consequences of my actions, in the moment, I hated you. I thought you were being cruel, but now I understand that was the greatest act of love you could have done for me. I felt tears sting my eyes. And if you had kept saving me, supporting me, allowing me to continue in that shallow, disrespectful life, I would never have woken up. I would never have grown up. I would never have become the person I am becoming now. Sophie, you let me fall, but you didn't abandon me, and that difference saved my life. We both cried there in the middle of the restaurant, holding each other, releasing years of pain, hurt, and finally, healing. Months later, Sophie met someone new. Marcus, a history teacher who frequented the coffee shop. He was kind, humble, and genuinely interested in who Sophie was, not what she had to offer. When she introduced me to him, for the first time in years, I saw pride in her eyes. Not the arrogant pride of showing off a trophy, but the genuine pride of introducing someone special to someone even more special. Mom, this is Marcus. Marcus, this is my mom, Amara. The strongest, wisest woman I know. Marcus extended his hand with a warm smile. It's an honor to meet you. Sophie talks about you all the time. Good things, I hope. Only the best. We had dinner together that night, talking, laughing, and I watched my daughter, truly happy, genuinely at peace, and felt that all the difficult decisions, all the suffering, all the pain, had been worth it. A year after that dinner, I received an invitation. Not by phone this time, it was delivered personally by Sophie in a beautiful envelope decorated with flowers. What is this? I asked. Open. Inside was a wedding invitation. Sophie and Marcus were getting married, And there, in gold letters, it was written, "Our joy will only be complete with the presence of the most important person, Amara, mother of the bride and inspiration in life." I looked at my daughter through tears. Sophie. You're the guest of honor, Mom. And nothing, absolutely nothing in this world would be more important than having you there, by my side, where you should always have been. I hugged my daughter tightly, feeling the circle finally close. We had been through hell together. We had hurt, we had healed, we had grown. The wedding was simple but beautiful. In a small garden, with only a few people, only the truly important ones. And when it was time for Sophie to walk down the aisle, she extended her arm to me. "Come with me?" "He is sure." "Absolutely. You brought me this far. In every way, I want you to be the one to deliver me to my future." We walked together down the makeshift aisle in the garden, watched by the excited guests. And as I handed my daughter to Marcus, I whispered in his ear, "Be happy, for real this time." "I will be, Mom. I promise." During the reception, as she watched Sophie dancing with her new husband, Margaret approached. "You should be proud, Amara." "I am. Not just hers, yours too. What you did wasn't easy, but it was necessary." He was. Many mothers wouldn't have the courage to set boundaries like that. They would have continued to be doormats, allowing disrespect to happen indefinitely. I was almost that mother. For years I was. But he woke up in time. And look at the result. We watched Sophie laughing, genuinely beaming. "You know what the greatest irony is?" I commented. "I lost everything to gain it all back. I lost the daughter I knew, the relationship we had. But I gained something so much better. I gained a daughter who respects me, who values me for who I am, and I gained my own respect back. That is the real victory." The evening ended with Sophie giving a speech. She thanked everyone for coming and spoke of her love for Marcus. Then she looked directly at me. "But there's someone here I need to thank especially, my mother, Amara. Mom, you gave me life twice, the first time when you brought me into this world. The second time when you had the courage to let me fall, knowing it was the only way I would learn to fly. I love you, and I promise I'll never forget how important you are, how important you've always been." I couldn't hold back the tears, and for the first time in years, they were tears of pure happiness. 2 more years passed. Sophie and Marcus had a daughter, Lily. And when I got the call that I was in labor, I rushed to the hospital. I was there when my granddaughter arrived, and when they placed that little baby in Sophie's arms, I saw something in my daughter's eyes I'd never seen before, a profound understanding of maternal love. "Now I understand," Sophie whispered, looking at Lily. "Now I truly understand everything you've been through, everything you've sacrificed, everything you've felt. Welcome to the club." Sophie looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm sorry for everything. I had no idea. I had no idea." "Shh, it's okay. All is forgiven. Do you swear you'll be present in her life, Lily's? Do you swear you'll be the wonderful grandmother I know you can be?" Law. And I kept that promise. Lily grew up knowing her grandmother, hearing stories, receiving unconditional love. But she also grew up seeing the respect between her mother and grandmother, seeing that healthy relationships have boundaries, mutual respect. Today, when I look back on that painful journey that began with a simple phone call, I only invited important people. I realized that was the defining moment. It was the moment I chose my own worth, the moment I said no to disrespect, even from my own daughter. And it was also the moment that, paradoxically, saved our relationship. Because true love isn't about accepting everything. It's not about being a doormat. It's not about allowing people to walk all over you indefinitely in the name of keeping the family together. True love is having the courage to set boundaries, to say, this isn't right, even when it hurts, to let people face the consequences of their choices, even if it's your own daughter. And sometimes the greatest act of love is simply to respond, "Didn't I tell you?" Because in that response, in that refusal to continue being treated as less than I deserved, lay not only my liberation, but also the lesson Sophie needed to learn. Today, Sophie is a wonderful mother, a dedicated wife, and a respected professional. But most importantly, she understands the value of genuine relationships, treats others with respect, and doesn't measure people's worth by how much they can offer materially. And me? I'm still just Amara, not rich, not important by the social standards Sophie once valued, but important where it really counts, in the hearts of my daughter, my granddaughter, and my own. And I found that that's the only importance that really matters. Because in the end, it wasn't about revenge, it wasn't malice, it was simply a mother saying, I'm worth more than this, and I'm going to treat myself as such, even if no one else does. And that was the most powerful lesson I could teach.